welcome back to my channel. Starting off this video looking great. I've got red eyeshadow stains on my eyes and I'm in my dressing gown. It's winter, leave me alone. So this is the last part, thank God, in my foundation series. So I've got, I believe, 11 foundations left to review, so they will all be reviewed in this video. And then that's it, we're done. I'll do like one final declutter, which I think I'll do as a separate video. I've not decided yet, but I feel like because these videos are already ridiculously long, it probably would just be better to do it as a separate video. Got the remaining foundations in this little basket here, but the one that we're going to be doing today is the W7 Face Fantasy foundation, which I actually have two of because I accidentally ordered two. Long story, no one cares. This is the only W7 foundation that actually is a really good shade match for me and that I don't need to mix. Generally, we know that W7 shade ranges are not good, but I think this is the last W7 foundation to review. So this is the W7 Face Fantasy, which describes itself as having a matte finish, which I don't think it does have a matte finish. It's probably one of the more matte ones out of all of them, but W7 foundations have very oily finishes. Okay, so I actually don't need to mix this, so I can just go straight on my face. Yeah, it's actually a pretty like good colour match. It's pale, it's got a more sort of yellowy olivey undertone, which is absolutely what I want. Oh my god, it's actually a really good shade match. Shocking considering there's like 6 shades of this foundation. Shade is buff, by the way. All of the lighter shades are buff. This is definitely probably one of the W7 foundations that I remember having like fonder memories of. So yeah, it's definitely more matte than the other ones, but it's not like super matte or anything. But anyway, let's shut up and let's just blend this onto our face. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a matte finish. It's more dewy and oily like the other W7 foundations. I'd say this is one of the less oily ones out of them, but it's still, I'm not even sure if I'd go as far to say semi-matte. I feel like this is just dewy, really. It's dewy, oily, radiant, whatever you want to use to describe it. It's not matte. Coverage is pretty good. I would say it's like a medium, maybe high medium coverage. I feel like it has covered for the most part. Maybe you can just see like my blemish scars a little bit. And obviously it's not covered the red eyeshadow on my eyes, but I didn't expect anything to anyway. Yeah, I'd say like probably a high medium. It's just, I don't know, I feel like it just looks a little bit sort of heavy. I mean, it's pretty smooth, it's even, there's no patchiness. It's just for me, I'm really like not into like super dewy, oily looking foundations anymore. I've just kind of majorly gone off of it. Who be meowing outside my door? What you doing? What you doing? Yeah, it's just because like when I look at it, the first thing I notice is like all of my pores. So I'll get close to the camera. I feel like it just looks a bit heavy looking on my forehead. I mean, it's pretty smooth and stuff. It's settled in my lines a little bit, but most foundations do. Someone's meowing at me and it's a bit annoying. It's just like when I look at my pores, I just feel like they're kind of emphasized. I mean, hopefully powder will minimize it. We'll see how it responds to that. I mean, it looks fine. I'm not hating how it's looking. Again, I think it'll look a lot nicer when I set it with powder. I'm not hating it, I'm not loving it, it's not my favourite finish. Coverage is pretty nice, coverage suits my preferences, I love the shade. So I need a control variable when it comes to the concealer and setting powder. I think those control variables are going to be the Maybelline Super Stay Full Coverage Under Eye Concealer, because this is in my rotation at the moment, I need to try it more. And the Catrice Nude Illusion Loose Powder, because also in my rotation, need to try this as much as I can. So I'm gonna stick to using these for all of the foundations that we review in this part. I'm gonna be back with my makeup done. Okay, so we're back with finished makeup. This is what will get us through the day. Everything's looking good. Obviously the powder has mattified the foundation, so it's not looking super dewy and oily now, which is good for me. I feel like it looks absolutely fine now. I'm happy. I'm happy. Am I in love? No, but I'm happy. So I will be back. Yeah, we should get about a 9-hour wear test, so it will be tested. We will see how this is looking. Areas I tend to focus on are my forehead, because I don't ever put any concealer on my forehead, and also I don't really touch my forehead a lot, so I'm not interfering with it in any way. Said in all the other previous parts, but I have a very irritated nose. Today it's been particularly runny, so my nose area and my kind of upper lip area tends to go to shit, so I never focus on that. I do like to focus on my chin, and the outer parts of my face, like here, tend to wear well with like everything. But anyway, we'll be back to examine that later. So we're back. It's been a little over 9 hours, so it's been on a decent amount of time. So let's get a look at this. I don't know why, but I'm looking at my forehead and like I expected this to wear really well because it's a W7 foundation and they tend to have pretty good wear, but there is a lot of sort of texture bumps and a bit of breakage. I don't feel like it looks great in this sort of area, like kind of in the center and in my brows and a little bit above that. I just feel like there's a bit of breakage happening, a bit of sinking into those little lines that I have like here where my brows meet. It also has smudged a bit up here, but I feel like that seems like the sort of thing that I've probably done, maybe like when I took my t-shirt off or something. I don't know, but it's a bit, I don't know, it's not like broken down terribly. Like I feel like that's held up like reasonably well, but it's just, I don't know, I was just expecting it to wear a bit better. There's quite a bit of texture and breakage on my chin. And again, like around my mouth as well, where I have kind of lines, it seems to have settled into them and it just looks a bit textured. I don't know, like I generally thought that this was going to wear better than I did. I have memories of it wearing better than how it has today, definitely. See, I'm looking at my forehead and I feel like I almost look a bit like oily, like a little bit shiny, which I never tend to get like bad oils at the end of the day, but I think because it is such an oily formulated foundation, I can almost see sort of like oils forming. Strange. I'm not hating how it looks at the end of the day, but I feel like of the W7 ones, it's definitely probably one of the worst ones. I think I'll give it a 6.5, maybe 7. I don't know. I think I should give it a 6.5 out of 10 for wear. Yeah. Coverage, I'm going to give it I think it's just like a solid sort of medium, somewhere between medium and high medium, so I'd probably give it a 6.5 for coverage. And then for finish, I think I would probably give it a 6 or a 6.5 as well. Probably just gonna have 6.5s all around for this one, really. I had it in my head that I was gonna keep this, but now I'm kind of questioning whether or not I want to keep it, because I mean, I don't need to keep it, really. I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe I might get rid of it, but I'm not going to make that decision now. I will make that decision when I do my final declutter, but I'm leaning towards maybe getting rid of it, but I'm going to keep it for now. I don't know. I feel like I just had better memories of this, and it's kind of just not performed as well as I would have liked it to today. I think that there are good aspects to it, definitely, but I don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the W7 Face Fantasy Foundation. Right, so the next foundation we are doing is the H&M All Day Liquid Foundation Flawless Finish. This is in the shade Alabaster. I'm pretty sure H&M still does their makeup. There are a few products from H&M that I actually thought were decent. I think they've got a brow gel that was pretty good. Micro brow pencil that's pretty decent. Oh, I know I've got some of their highlighters in my collection and they're really pretty. So they do some like decent makeup products. This guy I've not really reached for quite a long time. I seem to remember it being quite light coverage, which I generally don't go for light coverage very often. I think for me it's the sort of thing I go for maybe more in the summer if it's really hot outside and I want to wear makeup, but I don't want a full face of like cakey heavy foundation because I'm going to sweat. Or if I'm just going for a no makeup look, which I don't do very often, but maybe I should start doing it more. But yeah, I've not really reached for it for that reason. I also think the shade's like a tiny bit off. I think I need a bit of white mixer with it. So I'm going to use the Gosh Mix and Fix colour drops, the white ones. I'm just going to get a mix on my hands. Right, let's pop this on. very like fresh looking on the skin, very natural. Describe it as a high light coverage, low medium maybe. It's definitely not a foundation for coverage, but if that's not what you want anyway, then that doesn't really matter. It does look very natural. I can still see like my kind of skin coming through, which, I mean, I know a lot of people really like that, and maybe I do like that for some occasions. It definitely strikes me as a more summery foundation because it also has a sort of sunscreen smell. I'm actually hating how it's looking because I like how natural it is. I like how it doesn't look like a cake face. I feel like I was expecting to not like how it looks, but I actually kind of do like how it looks. I'd say it's probably more radiant than it is matte, but then I don't look at it and feel like it looks like an overkill of oil or anything. Maybe I'd say it's actually more semi-matte because it's got radiance, but then it's not too radiant. So I'll just get closer to the camera. So I think it looks okay on my forehead. Has set in the lines a little bit, but all foundations have been doing this lately. And here, it's not perfect in my pores. I wouldn't say it's emphasizing them really badly, but it's definitely not like perfect. But yeah, I am actually quite liking how it's looking for a light coverage foundation. So far so good. So again, I'm going to use the same concealer and powder in all of these. I'm going to use a bit of the Maybelline Super Stay Concealer and then the Catrice Nude Illusion Setting Powder. So I'll be back with my makeup done. Okay, so I am back with the makeup done. I am liking how things are looking. I feel like skin just looks quite natural, but obviously I've used concealer now, so that has bumped up the coverage. It's still not, like, there's still sort of things I can see coming through, but I don't really mind that at all. I just feel like it looks skin-like. It doesn't look heavy, which I feel like I was expecting to have more criticisms of this foundation, but so far I'm liking it. So we'll see how it holds up though. I'm gonna be back. It'll be about 8 hours this time because I've started a bit later, but yeah, I'll be back in about 8 hours and we'll see if this is still on my face. Okay, so I'm back. It's just been a little bit over 8 hours. So is this an all-day foundation like it claims to be? It's held up decently, kind of better than I thought it would. It's not the best wear. I have got some smudges on my face, like up here I've got a little smudge from work. I don't even freaking know. And then I've also got smudge on my chin. I don't even know, how did that happen? I don't feel like I've come into contact with my chin that much. If I look, so I'll start with my forehead. I mean, it's not looking like flawless. Like, there's definitely some wear there. I can see some texture between my brows. It's kind of started to break down a bit. Overall, it's not too bad up there. Like, I wouldn't say it's broken down very badly, but it's not looking perfect. But it's not too bad. Outer parts of my face are fine. It has settled into these little lines, my smile lines. It's definitely kind of settled into those further, and it has kind of textured a bit on my chin. It doesn't look perfect on my chin, but it doesn't look the worst either. It's not much breakage, just settled into that chin line quite a bit, and just a lot of texture bumps I'm noticing in that area. I mean, I feel like I must have contacted something with my chin to get black smudges. It's also on my nose, I've noticed. I have no idea what it is. Like, it happens a lot at work. I'll just get random shit on my face and I have no idea what it's from. It has to like just be like a cage or something. I think this is one like alright, but it's nothing special in terms of wear. I've definitely found a lot better ones, but I do think it's decent. I think I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I think I'd go as far to give it a 7 because it's not too bad. I think I am going to declutter this just because I never reach for it. I mean, I didn't dislike how it looked. It was fine. I think if you want a more light coverage, natural looking foundation, it's great. If this had worn like really well, I probably would have kept it, but no, I just feel like I'm not going to reach for this, to be honest, so I'm going to get rid of it. But I'm not saying it's terrible, but I just don't really want it anymore, to be honest. So for coverage, I would give it it's like highlight coverage, low medium coverage. I don't remember what my scale is, to be honest, but I think that's like a 4 or a 5. So I'll decide. When I'm editing, I'll look at that scale and decide, but it's either getting a 4 or 5. So I'll give it a 4.5 for now. For finish, I mean, I quite liked it. I mean, it wasn't perfect in my like pore area, but it wasn't too bad. So I think I'd give it either a 6.5 or a 7 for finish. I'll be nice and give it a 7 and then 7 for wear. So that's my final rating of that. I don't think it's bad, but I just feel like for my personal preferences, it's not the best. I feel like if I'm going to keep a light coverage foundation in my collection, I want it to have a really nice finish and to wear really well. But I feel like, I mean, it had a decent finish, it wore decently, but it just wasn't anything special. So I'm going to get rid of it for that reason. That's my thoughts on the H&M All Day Liquid Foundation. Okay, so the next foundation we're going to be reviewing is the Urban Decay All Nighter Waterproof Long Wear Liquid Foundation. This is in 0.5. This is about 3 years old. It's really not in prime condition, and if you can see, there's like a very minuscule amount of it left. I did use this a lot when I first had it, but then for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why, I just stopped using it. But I seem to remember like really liking it, and I did use it recently in a pic from my kit video, which is definitely going to be up before this one, I would have thought. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's definitely like a really like full coverage foundation. It does oxidize, so I do need to put some white mixer in with this. When I used it in my pic from my kit, it was surprisingly like fine. I was worried that like it'd be maybe like really separated because it's really old, but it seemed okay. That's what the shade's like. It's quite light. It's just it does oxidize from my memory. I'm pretty sure about the undertones. I would say they're probably more neutral, the undertones. Again, as I said, this is like 3 years old, so I don't know if they've got more shades now, possibly. I do want to buy the Stay Naked foundation. Again, I know that you don't need a lot with this foundation because it's really thick and like full coverage, so let's do the old coating. I mean, I've got to admit, it's full coverage. It's covered basically everything. I'm not actually going to put any concealer on just because I don't feel like I need to with this, and I feel like if I do, it's just going to make it like cakey and stuff, so I'm just going to set it down. So yeah, the coverage is pretty good. It's just covered all of my blemish scars, all of my darkness, redness. I would say that the finish is, I wouldn't say it's a completely matte foundation like I thought it would be. It's probably more semi-matte is what I'd describe it. I wouldn't say I'm looking at it and it looks super oily, but it's definitely some natural oils I can see on my skin. So I would say it's actually more semi-matte than it is matte on my skin anyway. But we'll just get closer to the camera. I mean, I don't think it looks lightweight on the skin, that's for sure. Like, it's, considering how good coverage it is, I feel like it could look cakier, but I still definitely don't think it looks particularly lightweight on the skin. It has kind of settled into my forehead lines a bit, but I've gotten a lot of the foundations I've been doing this. It's not perfect on my pores and my texture. Like, I wouldn't say they're emphasised, but they're definitely not minimised. It looks fine, but again, it is a bit of a line kind of sinky foundation, which I feel like is to be expected when it is this good coverage. But overall, I feel like it looks really smooth, really even, and again, as I said, it's quite old, so it might have looked a bit smoother when I like first had it. But overall, I'm liking how it's looking. It's just a little bit cakey, that's all I'll say, but I feel like it's a full coverage foundation and I'm not really going to moan too much about that. As I said, I'm not going to use any concealer, I'm just going to set it down with powder, so I'll be back with the rest of my makeup done. Okay, so makeup done. As I said, I didn't use any concealer, and again, I used the Catrice Nude Illusion powder because I'm going to use that for all of them. Again, like, it's just like, my one criticism is it doesn't look particularly natural, but I mean, I feel like you wouldn't buy a foundation that's described as full coverage if you wanted a natural look anyway. I actually think it looks pretty nice, so I'm happy with my skin. Now I've got to see how this wears. From my memory, it is pretty good wearing. I mean, it's called All Nighter. That would indicate that it wears all night. But I'm going to be back in probably about 8-9 hours, and we'll see how badly this has broken down. Okay, so it's been, I would say, just a little bit off 9 hours, just like about 10 minutes less or so. I think that it has worn pretty well. Maybe not quite as well as I was expecting to, just because I feel like I kind of had high expectations, because first of all, it's called All Nighter, second of all, I just remember it wearing very well in the past when I did use it. But again, if we go and look at my forehead, I don't think it's broken down too much, but there's definitely some texture. It doesn't look super smooth and super like kind of smooth on my forehead. There's just sort of texture bumps, and right in between my brows it is looking quite like textured. It doesn't look the best in that area. I don't know, like I think the forehead's like overall like not bad, but I don't know, I just kind of expected it to wear a bit better out there. Like it's absolutely fine, but it's just I feel like I've found better wearing ones. The outer parts of my face, as per usual, are absolutely fine. Not really much in terms of wear on there. My chin, it has kind of started to go quite textured, and it has obviously settled into that little line there quite a bit. I don't think it looks great on the chin, but again, it's like far from the worst. But yeah, there's definitely quite a few little dots and that line sinkage. And again, it has settled into my smile lines at the side of my mouth a fair amount. So it's definitely not amazing wear. But again, it's not bad either. Like I would say it's like good, it's above average, but I think I'm gonna give it like a 7 out of 10 for wear. Yeah, I think I'll probably give it a 7. I'll review the footage back obviously, but I think for now I'm gonna give it a 7 because I think it's above average. I think it's a good wearing foundation. So the other categories, so coverage, I do think this is a full coverage foundation. I think it is one of those foundations that describes itself as full coverage and actually is. So I think full coverage on my scale is between 8 and 9, so I'm probably just going to give it a 9 because the highest rating I've given for coverage is the Dermacool, which I gave 10, and I feel like putting this at a 1 less than Dermacool does seem pretty fair, to be honest. So I think I'd probably give it a 9 for coverage. It is a full coverage foundation, but again, I actually feel like I generally do prefer like sort of high medium. That's my preference. Anything from just like medium coverage to like low full coverage is kind of my preference. So this is actually maybe a bit more than I like. Someone wants to say hello. Meowing in you. What are you doing? You meowing. In terms of finish, again, like as I said, because it's so full coverage, I just feel like it looks a bit cakey, not particularly natural on the skin, but then I kind of feel like that's to be expected anyway from something that's full coverage. So I'm not so what should I give it? I think I'll probably just give it like a 6.5 because I think it looks pretty decent on the skin. It's like smooth, it's not patchy, it goes on fine. I'm just knocking off some points because it's a bit heavy looking. It does settle into my lines a bit. It's not the most natural looking thing, but again, I feel like you wouldn't buy that and expect it anyway. Again, because it is quite old, I feel like maybe it would have looked a bit like nicer, a bit smoother when I first had it. I am probably just going to keep this because there's like so little left in it that I might as well just finish it off. But I wouldn't buy it again. But that is my thoughts on the Urban Decay All Nighter foundation. Okay, so the next foundation I'm going to be doing is the IT Cosmetics Your Skin But Better CC Plus Covering, Correcting, Full Coverage Cream plus Anti-Aging Hydrating Serum plus SPF 50. It's a lot of things apparently. So this is in the shade Fair. I think it is like a tiny bit dark for me, but I kind of can't be bothered to mix it. It's not like really off or anything. It's like, I mean, it is a bit dark actually, now that it's on my face, but I kind of can't be bothered, you know? I'm just gonna do it. Definitely got warmer undertones. I'm just trying to remember. I did quite like this in the summer. I think it's like a solid medium coverage. I don't think it is full coverage. So in my opinion, I would just say this is like a solid medium coverage. I don't think it's full coverage or a high medium. Why my eyes like so lazy today? It's because I can still sort of see a lot of the blemishes coming through around my mouth. It's really dewy. It's definitely the sort of foundation for people who like a dewy finish, which I don't so much. So I definitely don't like it as much as I used to. It's just like really dewy, like all when I look at it, all I can see is like my pores. They're just so emphasized. It feels quite lightweight, but I don't necessarily think it looks lightweight. Like I still feel like it looks like a foundation, but it does feel quite nice in the skin. I don't know, I'm just really not into this that much anymore. Like it's absolutely fine, it's smooth. I think if you like a medium coverage, really dewy foundation, then I think you'd like this a lot, but for me it's just not. I mean, I'm fine with the medium coverage, but the dewiness is just, it's probably the dewiest one I've found so far. It's just so oily. Like, I can just see it in the camera frame. Like, just so much oil. I mean, that's fine if that's what you're into, but I've just really gone off it now. Again, I probably would only use this in the summer. Maybe I wouldn't mind so much the dew in the summer. But I don't know, I'm not loving how it's looking, but I can understand the appeal. So let me just get close to the camera. It just looks quite heavy up there, I feel. And I mean, I think it's just the dewiness that makes it look heavier because of all the oil that I can see on my face. It does settle into the lines a little bit. And it has settled kind of in my eye area. It's not too bad because all foundations do. But I don't know, I just feel like I could see my pores so much. I mean, otherwise it is like smooth, it's fine, there's no patchiness or anything. But it's just way too dewy for my liking personally. But again, it might look a lot better when I've set it with powder and stuff, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that and finish off my makeup. Okay, so my makeup's done and I definitely think it looks way better. Now that it's been mattified, like it's kind of just taken away all that oil. So yes, now I'm liking how my skin looks considerably more. So yeah, again, I used the Maybelline Superstay Concealer and the Catrice powder. That's actually not too bad as well now that I've concealed and set. Like, I feel like it's a little bit different to my neck, but it's not like really bad or anything. So, you know, that's mattified. I actually quite like how it looks, but we'll see how it wears. Again, I don't really have any memory whatsoever of how this one wears. So I guess we'll find out. I'll be back in about 9 hours, I think, and we'll see if this is on my face still. Okay, so it's just in a tiny bit over 9 hours now. So it's been a pretty long, hard working day, so it's, you know, had some conditions to deal with. So I'm just gonna go to my forehead first. What do I think? I don't think it's too bad. It's not perfect, but it's not really broken down too much. It's definitely like I can tell that it's like been on for a while. It doesn't look, you know, as nice as it did at the start. I just feel like there's a bit of texture. Maybe even like a little bit of oil coming through. It looks a little bit like kind of textured, and like the product's starting to break a little bit between the brows. But overall, I don't think it's too bad on the forehead actually. I think the breakage is pretty minimal. So I would say I'm pretty impressed with how it's held up there. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. My chin isn't looking the best. I'm definitely noticing some breakage going on in that area. I don't think that's the best chin wear, to be honest. It's not great. Just very bumpy, sunk into that line quite badly. It has sort of kind of gathered in my smile lines, like at the side of my mouth. That's probably quite noticeably actually. Not the best. And on the other side, I think it definitely looks like it's been on, but it's not really bad. Kind of mixed towards. I don't think that it's an amazing wearing foundation. I don't think it's really bad. I think the forehead is like pretty decent. Like it doesn't look exactly the same as when it started. I feel like there's a little bit of line sinkage, a little bit of texture going on. My chin does not look my chin's pretty bad, to be honest. It's not as bad as the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea in the last part. That was really bad. But it's definitely not great, to be honest. So I think I'd probably just give this like a 6.5 out of 10. Because I think it's above average, but I don't think it's as good as some of the ones that I've given like 7s or 8s. For coverage, to me it's a solid medium coverage. It describes, I feel like the idea of a CC cream being full coverage doesn't really make sense anyway, which is what's kind of marketed as a CC cream, but it's a full coverage. It's literally on the name of it, so it's kind of just like, surely those things contradict each other, because CC creams are basically like BB creams. I mean, I'm pretty sure it stands for colour correcting, right? I don't think it's full coverage like it says it is. For me, it's just a solid medium coverage is what I'd give it, which I think is a 6 on my scale. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 6 for coverage. It's just a solid medium coverage foundation, which is absolutely fine. I've got no issue with that at all. It's just, I think the fact that it does describe itself as full coverage kind of, you know, that's a bit annoying. I think to bear in mind if you do want to buy it under the pretense that it is full coverage. Finish, I think I'd give it, again, I think this is down to a personal preference thing, because I think some people would really like that finish, but for me it's just way too dewy for what I like. It's just, I put it on and I immediately see all of my pores. It's just like, it's like putting a magnifying glass on my pores, really. I don't know, I think I'm just gonna give it like a 6 out of 10. Have I given it anything 6 yet? Because that needs to happen. So that's my thoughts on the IT Cosmetics CC cream. I feel like I'm going to keep this just because first of all it's very expensive, and I feel like I would still get use out of this in the summer, and again I do want to experiment mixing it with things as well, so I'm definitely going to keep it in my collection, even though it's definitely not my favourite foundation. It's not really tailored to my preferences. But as my thoughts on the IT Cosmetics CC Plus Colour Correcting Full Coverage Cream. Okay, so the next foundation we're going to be reviewing is the Max Factor Radiant Lift Long Lasting Foundation. It's in 40 Light Ivory. I do have a review of this on my channel from 2018, I think, around the time that it came out. I think the undertones are a little bit off, and I think it's a little bit dark, so I'm going to need to mix it. I mean, it's not ridiculously off, but it's definitely not a match, that's for sure. Yeah, the more I'm looking at it, the more it looks very orange. I'm going to use some of my Gosh Mix and Fix drops, and I might put a tiny bit of my yellow pigment from LA Girl, but like a really like tiny amount. It's a colour. That's what I'll say. Right, let's do this. Definitely got dew in it. I wouldn't say it's like super duper wow dewy, which I know, I remember someone commenting on the original video saying it was disappointing because it's described as a radiant lift foundation. I mean, it's definitely got dew in it. I can see like those sort of oils coming through, but for me I'd say it's like semi-matte, leaning more dewy than matte, but it definitely has got radiance in it. It's just not like the IT Cosmetics one that I tried yesterday, for example, which is just dew. I would say that's like a high medium actually. I feel like that's covered my blemishes a lot better than the IT Cosmetics one did yesterday, so I'd say yeah, it's a high medium coverage, and I think it looks fine on the skin. Maybe like not the most lightweight looking foundation, like it's a bit foundation-y, so I'll just get close to the camera. Like it does kind of look a little bit heavy on my forehead. It has settled in the lines a little bit, but overall it looks pretty smooth. But yeah, it's definitely not the most lightweight looking foundation, and again, like it's not emphasizing my pores as much as the really dewy foundations, but because there is some dew in it, it's not super flattering on my pores, but it's not the worst. Yeah, I think it looks fine really. It's just I would prefer it to be a little bit matter. I think it's decent actually, I like it. I think the coverage is good. Just wish it looked a little bit more lightweight in the skin and was a little bit more matte, but it's a radiant lift foundation, so obviously it's not going to be matte anyway. I don't think you'd buy it if that's what you wanted, but my colour still looks a bit off. Anyway, I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup now. Okay, makeup's done. Same concealer, same powder, Maybelline Superstay, Catrice. Yeah, and obviously mattifying it has made it way less dewy now, and yeah, I think it looks absolutely fine. Again, we're going to see how well this lasts. I know I did do a wear test in the original video, but I can't remember. I think it did wear quite well, but we'll see. So I'll be back in about 8-9 hours for that. Okay, so we're back. It's been 9 hours now. So I do think this oxidizes a little bit. I feel like it already was a little bit dark for me anyway initially, but I feel like it has gotten even darker as the day's gone on. I'm not super impressed with how it's worn, to be honest. I'm just looking at it and I'm noticing a lot of wear and tear. Okay, so we'll get close to my forehead. It's not the worst, but I just feel like when I look like right in the center here, it just looks really textured and like it's kind of starting to break down. I just don't look at that and think it looks particularly great, especially between the brows. I mean, I hope that you can see what I mean. It's just, you can kind of just see it starting to break down and it's kind of just clung to all of the little pores up there. And I don't know, it's kind of a little bit dotty up at the top as well. I don't know. I don't think that's the best. It's not the worst. It's not really terrible or anything, but it's not the best. It's like really like properly gathered in my like smile lines, like just here. I wouldn't say it's held up particularly great around my mouth area. Yeah, it's just really sort of kind of gathered quite weirdly there. And it's starting to kind of go very textured and break down on my chin. I don't think it looks particularly great on my chin, to be honest. I wouldn't say I'm super impressed with the wear. I don't think it's really bad. These outer parts of my face are pretty decent. Maybe like a little bit flaky almost. I think that's what I would describe it as. I just feel like my skin looks a little bit flaky. See, like even these outer parts of my face, like there's not a lot of breakage. I just feel like they look a little bit dry almost. Which is weird because it's not a dry foundation. But maybe it just gets drier the longer it's on your skin. I just don't look at this and think that it's worn great, to be honest. But I don't think it's worn really badly either. I'd probably give it like a 6 or a 6.5. I'm going to have to watch the footage back and compare it to some of the others, but I think I'd give it either a 6 or a 6.5 for wear. It's a little bit above average, but not a lot above average. It's not really bad, but I definitely feel like I've definitely found a lot better ones throughout this series, definitely. Yeah, so for coverage, I do think it's like a high-medium coverage. It's pretty decent coverage. I do like that aspect of it. High-medium is a 7 on my scale. So yeah, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for coverage. It's pretty good. Finish, it's not my favourite. I mean, I just feel like it looks a little bit heavy. It's a little bit dewier for my liking, but again, some people like that. But I wouldn't say it's like super duper dewy. It's more semi-matte. I think I'd just give it a 6 for finish. Honestly, I feel like I had better memories of this, and I feel like my opinion's probably changed a lot since that review that I did, because I feel like I was quite positive in that review. I'll have to watch that back, to be honest. I will put a card up for it at some point in the video, but I do feel like my opinion's probably a bit more not so great of it now compared to what it used to be, because I didn't really have like a preference when it came to dewy or matte foundations anyway back then, but now that I do, I think I might get rid of this one. I just don't realistically see me using it a lot. I am going to try the Max Factor one. It's not new, but it's a reformulation. I think it's called the Facefinity. I will be trying that one at some point this year, but I just don't feel strong feelings of love towards this, so I think I am going to declutter this one. Alright, so I got a cold, so I couldn't film any of these for a while, and it's mostly gone. I'm still a little bit like in the nose, but then I'm always like in the nose anyway because of my allergies. Just gonna crack on with this. So the next foundation I'm gonna do is the Revolution Pro Foundation Drop. Seasons here. The shade I've got is F1. I got this like around the time it came out, maybe like a couple months after it was released. Obviously they didn't have the full shade range then, but I got F1. Obviously, as I said, I got this like a couple months after it was released, so it's a bit old in my collection. It's probably not in the best state. My memory of this is that it's got really good coverage, but I think it's got a bit of an oily finish, which, as I've said probably 50 million times already, I'm not super into nowadays. Let's give this a shake and just shove it on our face. It's definitely very pale. I feel like the undertones don't look too bad. Like, they are just very like neutral looking, in my opinion. Like, there's no coolness, there's no warmness, they're just very neutral. Which, I mean, ideally I'd like it a bit warm, but I feel like we can get away with this colour. It's definitely very pale. It's definitely a oil slick. Yeah, I knew it was oily. I didn't know it was quite that oily though. It's very, very oily. You should be able to see all of that shine on camera. I will admit though, it has got really good coverage. I'd say this is like a high medium, maybe even low fold coverage. You know, I feel like if they built it more, it would be like a low fold coverage. So that aspect of it is pretty damn impressive. However, it's just so oily and it just looks so there, if you get what I mean. Like, it's definitely not a lightweight like looking foundation, and that's the thing. I feel like when there's oil on my face, it just makes it like even cakier than it might actually be, because it's just so like noticeable in the skin, because all I can see is the oil. I feel like, again, this will probably look better once I've set it with powder and stuff. It really needs setting with powder. You could not set this with powder, that's for sure. I don't think oily skin would particularly get along with this unless you use a shit ton of powder, But then I feel like because it already looks a little bit heavy in the skin, it's probably just going to make it look even heavier if you're putting loads of powder on. The finish is fine in terms of like there's no patchiness, like it blends really nicely. It looks fine, it's the oil which I just don't like. And it's maybe a little bit cakey, but get a bit close to the camera so you can see. It's settling a tiny bit into my forehead lines, but actually that's pretty decent considering, as you'll have seen already, foundations tend to just really go into those lines, so that's actually not too bad. But I do feel like it just looks quite like heavy up there on my forehead, and you should be able to see all that oil. It's like a bit like quite creasy in my eyes, if you could see, but I feel like the more full coverage I think is, that's kind of going to happen. It's not that big a deal for me personally. Yeah, it's just kind of stinging my pores a bit because of all the oil, but it doesn't look really bad on the skin or anything. I think it will look a lot better once I've set it. Maybe if you've got really dry skin, but you like a medium to full coverage, you'd like this. Anyway, I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup. Okay, so the makeup is done. I used the Maybelline Superstay again and the Catrice setting powder again. And yes, we are definitely mattified now. All the oil be gone, so I'm glad about that. It worked well with powder. Well, I think my skin looks decent now. All the oil is gone. I do still feel like I look a little bit heavy and a little bit cakey, but it's not really bad or anything. Like, I would actually say this is like better coverage than the Revolution Pro full cover one, which, I mean, that one is really good coverage as well, but I feel like this one's maybe like a tiny bit better, which is weird because I feel like the whole selling aspect of the other one is that it's full coverage. This one I feel like is actually a little bit more. I'm going to be back in probably about 8 or 9 hours to see how this is holding up. So we have had this on for about 9 hours now. Right, what do I think? So let's just get closer to my forehead. I feel like it is starting to break down quite a bit between my brows here. Should be able to see that. It's just sort of breaking down, looking a bit textured. And I just feel like generally my forehead looks a little bit textured. It's not broken down too badly outside of the inner part between my brows. Like the rest of my forehead, it's not really broken down. There's just like quite a few little texture bumps up there I'm noticing. I wouldn't say it's particularly impressive, but it's not really bad either, just because I just feel like this bit in particular is it's not great. Yeah, the outer parts of my face are fine. There's a little bit of texture on my chin, and I also feel like it looks a tiny bit of red on my chin, which is making me think that it's kind of breaking down a bit, because obviously my skin is naturally got some redness in it, so I think maybe it is starting to break down a bit. My chin, I mean, it has settled in this line, but again, I'm finding that most of these foundations tend to be settling into that line there. I don't think it's one of the best. It's not really bad. Like, there's definitely worse ones I've found for sure. I feel like I'd probably just give it like 6 or a 6.5 out of 10, I think, for wear. I'd put it like a little bit above average, but not a lot above average, just a little bit above average. Yeah, I think it wears okay. It's not great. I think I am going to get rid of this. I just don't realistically see myself using it a lot. So I think I am gonna get rid of this guy. It's just a bit too oily for me, and it's not the best wear. One last Revolution one, which is the fast base foundation stick, and I'm quite interested to see what that's like. I do wear other clothes, I promise. So the next foundation we're doing is the Primark My Perfect Colour Velvet Finish Foundation, which I bought last year. The shade is porcelain. It looks like this. It was £6. So I've already reviewed the double coverage one this series, and I've got a video on my channel where I reviewed this and the double coverage one when I first got them. I think I decided to get rid of the double coverage. I can't remember, honestly. So I've got a feeling that I'm probably not gonna keep this one, but we'll put it on today. We'll see what it does. The shade is not too bad. It's probably not the right undertones, but I think it's quite light, and I can't be bothered to mix it. So, and it's got a dropper, which I'm not the biggest fan of. See, I remember the other Primark one, when I reviewed it, being quite oily, which was funny because it was literally described as matte, and this one is described as a velvet finish, so it doesn't really kind of specify if it's matte or dewy. I mean, it's just velvet, which I feel like, to me, that makes me think, is it like satin, sort of semi-matte? Which I'd kind of say it is. Like, I feel like this is less oily than the matte foundation, which is hilarious. I mean, it is still quite dewy, like there is noticeable oil on the face. I'd rather it be like a tiny bit less oily, but I've got pretty decent coverage actually. I feel like for the most part it is covered like the blemishes around my mouth quite well. I think I would say that's kind of like medium to high medium coverage. It's not bad. It's not obviously full coverage, but it's pretty good. It looks okay in the skin. A little bit heavy, a little bit cakey. Nothing major. I'm not hating how it's looking. I think I maybe do like it a little bit better than the other Primark one. I'll just get close to the camera. I feel like on my forehead it does look a little bit heavy. Sitting in the lines a little bit. Nothing too bad. I mean, all the foundations tend to be doing this, but not the best, not the worst for lines. I mean, like, it definitely is like a bit too oily for what I like personally. I'm just comparing it to the other one, which I felt like was even oilier. So yeah, it does sit in my pores a little bit. I don't know, like, I'm not disliking how it's looking, but it's definitely far from like an amazing flawless finish, that's for sure. But I feel like around my mouth it has covered my blemishes quite well. I wasn't really expecting it to, but it kind of has. So yeah, it looks okay. I'm not in love with the finish, but it's absolutely fine. Anyway, I'm gonna finish off my makeup now. Okay, makeup is done. Same concealer, same powder, you know the drill. So we're gonna get about 8 to 9 hours wear out of this. Okay, so it's a completely different day to when I filmed the first part of this review, because I was having some searing pain in this side of my head over the weekend that I filmed that Primark thing, and I didn't really see the point in refilming the actual applying it part and talking about it, so I thought I would just wear it another day and then do the wear test aspect of it now, which is what I'm going to do. I have the Primark foundation on. I'm just thinking, I've been at work for 7.5 hours. I've had it on for about 9 hours, I believe. So let's have a look at how it is held up. So forehead, that's actually really not that bad at all. That's pretty good actually. I'm quite impressed with that. Like, maybe a tiny little bit of texture, a little bit between my brows. Like, doesn't look absolutely perfect, but I think overall, like, there's really not a lot of breakage up there. I would say that is quite impressive. And again, there's not really much breakage on my chin. A tiny little bit of texture, but not a lot of breakage. I do think that's actually held up quite well, and I have slightly touched my chin today, so that may explain said texture. But overall, again, it has obviously sat in that little line, but recurring theme here, that keeps happening with these foundations. These outer parts of my face look fine. I have been touching quite a lot around my pores today. So yeah, I think that holds up pretty decently. It's not like mind-blowingly amazing, but I would say it's definitely quite a bit above average. I think I'd probably give it like a 7.5, maybe an 8 out of 10 for wear. I'll stick with a 7.5 for now, just because I feel like I have found ones that have wowed me a little bit better in terms of wear. But overall, like, that's pretty good. It's just like a few little bits of kind of texture, really. Like, it doesn't look super fresh, but it's held up pretty decently, I would say. Not much I can fault it on. I still don't think I'm going to keep this, just because I don't see myself reaching for it that often. But I don't actually think it's half bad. Like, it's a decent foundation, and if you've not got a lot to spend on foundation, I would say it's probably worth trying. I think it's got pretty good coverage. I would say it's like buildable as like a high medium, so I think I'd probably give it like, I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for coverage actually, because it was quite impressive. It's not full coverage, but I feel like for the most part it did cover my blemishes pretty well, so I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Finish, like, it's not bad, it's not terrible. Wish it was a little bit more matte, but I feel like it looks decent on the skin. Could look, it maybe a tiny bit cakey. I think I'd probably give it a 6.5 for finish, because it's really not that bad at all. So in my opinion, this is like, it's decent. It's like a good foundation, so I could see people getting along with this quite well, but for me, I don't know, there's just something a bit missing with this for me, and I think I just wish it looked a little bit nicer on the skin, but really it's actually not that bad at all. So I would recommend it, but for me, I just feel like it's not something I'm going to reach for a lot. So I am going to get rid of this. But that's only because I'm wanting to be a bit more brutal. So we changed the dressing gown. You know, mix it up a bit. Okay, so the next foundation we're doing is the Revolution, what's it called? The Fast Base Foundation Stick. This is in F1. I feel like this is one of their earlier... Is it the first one they did? I think it might be like one of their really like first proper foundations they released. I think I did use it quite a bit when I had it because that's as far up as it goes. I seem to remember like sort of liking it, but I think at the time I remember it was really hyped up and like there was so many of those like viral videos going around of like how amazing coverage it was and stuff, so I think I was like a little bit like underwhelmed with it, but I didn't like dislike it at the same time. And I've not used it in absolutely ages. Recurring theme, I know. So I'm quite interested to see what this does. I know it's quite like a creamy formula because I know with foundation sticks it can be like, they're either going to be like super dry or they're going to be super creamy. How many have I tried? I've tried the Barry M one in this series already, which I actually think that looks super nice on the skin. I don't remember how matte this is. I do remember it having like pretty good coverage. The shade is, you know, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's decent. Again, I don't know if they expanded the shade range of this. I assume they still make this. I should know because I was looking through their website the other day, but because I'm going to be buying some more Revolution products. I do want to buy the, I am going to get the Makeup Obsession foundation stick that's just come out. Am I putting too much on or is this fine? Okay, so I definitely think I put too much on. Oh my god, it's really good coverage. Like, I think I would say that's full coverage, you know. It's really good coverage. I feel like it is a little bit too dewy for my liking. It's sort of like a semi-matte sort of finish. It's not matte, it's not super dewy, but I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of shine on my face from it, which, you know, as I've mentioned 25,000 times, I'm sure it just emphasises my pores quite a bit, but again, I think it will look nicer once it's set. Yeah, I think I put too much on. It's looking a bit, like, it does look a little bit like sort of greasy almost, like the finish is a little bit greasy looking. I do think I actually have an original like first impressions of this on my channel somewhere, which if I can find I'll put a card for, assuming I've not used all my cards up. I feel like it's covered, like all these little blemishes around my mouth are pretty much like gone, minimised, like pretty good. It just looks a little bit sort of, you know, cakey looking, a bit too much dew for my liking, but it's not bad. It's very smooth looking, that's for sure. Very buttery. Just a little bit too much dew for my liking, but again, I know a lot of people love the dew, so that's absolutely fine for some. The shade's not too bad, but again, it's just the undertones are a bit different, but it's not like I look like really orange or anything, so that's nice. I'm not really going to need too much concealer with this. I'll probably just put like a dab on, and then same powder, same Catrice powder, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then you'll see how this wears. Okay, so all of the makeup is done. No memory whatsoever of how it wears, so I'm interested to see. I'll be back probably about 8 hours for this one, and we'll see. Is this gone for my face? Is it not? We'll be back for that. Okay, so we're back. It's been about 8.5 hours, and my mascara has transferred quite a bit. Not that that's relevant to anything. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. So if we get close to my forehead, I just feel like it looks quite textured. Like a little bit grainy sort of looking, if you get what I mean. It doesn't look perfect, but at the same time, it's not broken down too badly. Like, there's definitely been way worse ones on my forehead, and it has kind of settled into the little kind of, I'm going to call them inner eyebrow dimples. You know, like when you squint like that, and there's little lines there. I feel like it's kind of settled into them. Hopefully you can see that, like just the little lines right there. Hopefully you can see that. I do find that some foundations sink to those, but it's not super common. The outer parts of my face look pretty fine. My chin, yeah, I can kind of see that it is starting to break down a bit in my chin. It has settled into that line quite a bit, but I'm not going to mock it. I'm not going to judge it too harshly in that because they've all been doing that, but I do feel like it has started to kind of you know, just break down and kind of separate a bit on my chin. Hopefully you can see what I mean. It's not the best in terms of chin wear. I don't think it was badly, but I just feel like there's a lot that could be improved with the wear. I know a lot of people really like these for like cream contouring. I'm not super into cream contouring, but I am sort of maybe considering like getting back into it, and I feel like, again, this is the sort of thing I'd probably like for that. But I don't know, I feel like it's just maybe underwhelmed me a little bit today. I will admit the coverage is really good. I was impressed with that aspect of it. I feel like it is actually quite similar to the Primark one that I did yesterday, so I probably am going to get rid of it. But in terms of rating, for coverage, I generally think that it does border on full coverage, so I think I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10. I think it's really good. For finish, I think I would give it a, again, like I just felt like tiny bit heavy looking, tiny bit cakey, a little bit too oily for my personal liking, but I know that's not a deal breaker for everyone. But for me, I'm not the biggest fan of the kind of oily look it has. I think I'd probably just give it like a 6 out of 10 for finish. And then for wear, I think I'd give it a 6.5 because it's a bit above average, but it's nothing particularly great. I've definitely found a lot better ones doing this series, so I think I'd give it a 6.5 for wear. So yeah, I am going to get rid of this. I think if you are looking for like an affordable foundation that's got really good coverage, then this is great, but in my opinion it could just look a bit nicer on the skin and it could wear a bit better. It just kind of lets me down in that sort of category, so for that reason I am going to get rid of this one. I think that's all of the Revolution foundations done now, and I definitely feel like my favourite is the Conceal and Define, the original one, not the Hydrate, although that's not even in this series, but I have tried that. Okay, so the next foundation we're going to be reviewing is the NYX Total Control Drop Foundation. I did use this recently in a pic from my kit, like a couple months back. So if I've not run out of cards, I will put a card up to that video. So I did, you know, try it recently, so I do sort of have a refresher in my head. It's very old. I think I got it around the time it first came to the UK, which was probably like 2 years ago. So it's not in the prime condition, but I did used to like it a lot at the time. But using it in my pick from my kit, again, I just found it too oily, and I'm sorry that I keep banging on about foundations being too oily. It must be getting really boring now. Shade is Alabaster. I feel like there's actually probably not a lot left in this because they are like absolutely tiny bottles, and I did use it more frequently around the time that I had it, so there's probably not actually loads left in here. Okay, out, okay. Into the brows it goes. I think it does look quite lightweight actually and like natural, and I know like the selling point of this is that it's kind of buildable coverage, so you can kind of get the level that you want. I feel like at the level I've put on now, it did do quite a few drops, but again, like they're not massive drops that come out. So I would say it's kind of just at a solid medium coverage now, which is absolutely fine. I feel like you probably could get it to like a full coverage, but you'd be putting a lot on, and because it's a small bottle, you know, it's not going to last you long if you want full coverage from it. I'd just describe it as like medium buildable coverage. The shade match actually isn't too bad. It's definitely very pale. I feel like it's a little bit more neutral than my neck, but it's like pretty close. It's not majorly off or anything. I do think it looks quite lightweight on the skin. Like I don't feel like it looks super cakey, which is nice, but again, it is like a tiny bit too dewy for my liking. I feel like it wasn't as dewy as I remembered it being from that pic from my kit. Like it looks more matte than I remember from that video. Maybe I just put like more on in that video or something. I don't know, but I feel like I like how it looks better today. Like I actually don't mind how it looks because it's not too overly oily actually. I feel like it looks more semi-matte at the moment, which is great. And it doesn't look super cakey, which is great, but then it's giving me enough coverage. So actually, I'm quite liking it. It maybe does look a tiny bit gritty on my forehead, like it does settle into the lines quite a bit. It looks a tiny bit gritty on the skin, I'll say that. I think that might just be because it's quite old, I don't know. It's sitting in my pores a little bit, but not too badly. So I'm going to go finish off the rest of my makeup now. Okay, so the rest of the makeup is done. I do feel like when I'm setting it, there's like a little bit of like weird texture in some areas, like right in this bit of my eyelids. It's a bit like grainy kind of looking. I don't know, I feel like because it's just a bit old, it's maybe just got a little bit grainy and gritty, the texture of it. I mean, to be honest, I'm probably not going to keep it just based on how old it is. But nonetheless, we're going to see how it wears. I think
NYX foundations do tend to wear quite well. The Can't Stop Won't Stop wears really well. The NYX Born to Glow doesn't wear as well, but it wears quite decently. So I feel like this might wear quite well, but we'll see. So we'll be back in about 9 hours, I think, and then we'll see what this looks like. Okay, so it has been 9 hours, so let's get a look at this. I feel like it's worn quite similarly. I feel like it's worn quite similar to the last one we did, the Revolution Fast Pace. There is just like a little bit of kind of wear and tear, but it's not too bad. So my forehead, I feel like it just looks a little bit gritty up there. A little bit of like kind of, you know, quite a bit of texture. Quite a bit of, again, like these little forehead lines I have. It's kind of sunk into a bit. I don't know, it just looks a little bit like kind of gritty and a bit textury up there, but overall the product itself hasn't really broken down, just maybe like a tiny bit between my brows, but only a little bit, so it's not really broken down that bad, but it's definitely not looking like super smooth and nice. These outer parts of my face look fine. Again, there is a little bit of separation happening on the chin. I feel like this is one like pretty much exactly the same as the one I did yesterday. It's just like a, you know, line sinking a little bit of like kind of the product started to break down a bit, so yeah, very similar to the one yesterday. So it's a bit above average, but it's nothing particularly amazing, so I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10. Again, it may wear better if you're buying it like fresh. Obviously this has been sitting around in my makeup collection for potentially 3 years, so for that reason I am going to get rid of it. So in terms of coverage, I think it is like a solid medium, but then it is buildable as well, so I feel like I'd give it like a 6.5 I think for coverage, maybe a 7, I'm not sure. It's like, it's good coverage, it's customizable, that's great, but I don't know, I feel like if you wanted it to look full coverage, you'd have to put quite a lot on, use a lot of product, and then it would probably start to kind of cake up a bit as well, so I'll give it a 6.5. For finish, I imagine it'd look better if it wasn't as old in my collection. It's still a little bit too dewy for my personal liking, but overall it felt like it looked quite natural looking on the skin. It didn't look too heavy or cakey, but again, obviously I only put like enough to get a medium coverage on. So I liked the finish, I didn't love it. I liked it more this time when I used it than when I used it in my pick for my kit. So I think I'd probably just give it like a 6.5 for finish, and then for wear, again, like a 6.5 I think. A little bit above average, but nothing particularly great, so yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I imagine I'd like it more if it was a fresher bottle, but overall it's just a bit meh to me. It's okay. I used to really like it a lot, but I don't know, I feel like it's just, I'm gonna get rid of this one, so that's what I've got to say about the NYX Control Drop. Okay, so the next foundation we are going to be reviewing, and possibly the last. Basically, I have a Chanel foundation, but I've looked all through my makeup collection and I can't find it. So if I don't find it, then this is the last foundation I'm going to be reviewing. But this is the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation, and I can already tell you that I'm not getting rid of this. I like this. This is one of my favourite foundations. I really like it. But obviously we're still going to review it. And it's in the shade NC10, which I think it's like, it matches pretty well. I don't need a white mixer with it. It's probably not absolutely perfect, but it's close enough. And it's got like a bottle sort of format that you have to pour out, and I really dislike that sort of format, but it's okay. Really like this foundation. It's kind of one I'd go for on a night out. It's just got such good coverage. It's not too dewy. It's more of a matte finish. And it's got good wear as well. I just really like this, so let's hope that it performs well in this review, or else no one will believe me that it's so good. Of course they will, there's so many reviews of this because it's such a cult product. So that is what the shade is. It's not like 100% perfect, but it's like close enough. Oh, it's got such a nice texture as well. Anyway, let's put this on. It's matte, but not like dry matte. Like I can still see like a bit of natural oil coming through in my face. You should be able to see that on the camera, but it is for the most part a matte foundation. It sits on my pores a tiny bit just because literally every foundation does, but I feel like compared to the more oily ones it doesn't do it too badly. It just looks super smooth on the face. It's got great coverage. I wouldn't say it's lightweight looking, but it's definitely not, considering like the coverage. It's not like particularly like heavy or cakey. I just think it looks really nice on the skin. It's one of my favourite foundations. The coverage I would say is like high medium coverage. I wouldn't say like it's fully full. I would say it's like full coverage, but it's fine. Like for my preferences, it's absolutely what I personally look for. Like a high medium buildable to low full coverage is what it is, and it's absolutely great in terms of that. It's just there's no patchiness. It looks smooth, sitting on the skin really nicely. It's not actually settled into my lines that badly on my forehead. Probably will do the more I leave it, but I just think it looks really nice on the skin. Definitely one of my favourite finishes. The only kind of thing I'll fault with the finish is that it doesn't look super natural and lightweight, but considering the amount of coverage it has, I don't really expect it to do that anyway. But I just feel like it looks great, to be honest. Again, this has been in my collection for a while, so it is like a little bit probably past its best. I'm trying to remember when I bought it. It would have been in 2018. Either towards the end or like the middle of 2018, so it has been in my collection for quite a while, and obviously still going strong. So they've got a pretty good shade range, because I know like MAC was like the original like good shade range foundation, but then as like brands are sort of caught up and shade ranges are a lot better nowadays, I feel like MAC could probably do with expanding actually, because I'm pretty sure this is the lightest shade. So I've obviously got NC10, and then I'm pretty sure there's an NW10, but it's just like the same shade, different undertone. And there are definitely people lighter than me, shocking I know. So I feel like they definitely could add more, and again I have no idea what it's like on the deeper end of the spectrum, but I just feel like probably in the past they were the great shade range foundation brand, but I feel like they probably, I don't actually know, I've not looked recently, so they may have expanded, but let's just say compared to the Pop Beauty foundation I tried the other day that had 8 shades, it's doing a pretty good job. So I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup now. Okay, so the makeup is done, and I think my skin looks pretty fit, you know. So yeah, we're going to be back in about 8 to 9 hours, and we'll see how this wears. It wears well. I hope that it does it on camera for you. So literally just come into my room after a day of work and realised that I've left my camera on all day. Like, not recording, I've just left the display on. Wow. I'm a terrible person. I am so impressed with how this is worn. Like, my forehead looks amazing. Like, it looks, like, look at that. That looks, there's barely any difference whatsoever. Maybe like if I'm looking really closely, a few little texture bumps, but that looks so good. And normally like between my brows is quite problematic, but that's pretty decent. Like there's really not a lot of wear at all. Like that looks basically how it looked when I applied it. Maybe like, you know, those little lines I was talking about, I can see it kind of slightly settle into that, but that looks so good. And my chin, there's no breakage on the chin, just a tiny bit of texture bumps, and obviously everything is sinking into that line. So it's not absolutely 100% perfect on the chin, but it's pretty decent, to be honest. Just a few little texture bumps. These outer parts of my face look exactly the same. Obviously worn off in the normal areas, it wears off around my nose because my nose has been especially runny today. I managed to like whack the side of my face here with a newspaper, but it's actually no weird dent or anything I thought there would be. This wears so good, I feel like I would put it up there with L'Oreal and W7, which I think I gave 9. You know what, I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10 for wear. I think that's really good. I'm like so impressed with it. Like, I literally just got in front of this, looked straight at my forehead and was like, yes, that has done it for me. Then I looked at my chin and I was like, ooh, tiny little bit of dots, but for the most part pretty good compared to what we've seen. So I'm going to give it a 9. It's literally losing 1 point for the tiny bit of texture bumps, that's it. Definitely would recommend this foundation to anyone that wants like a high medium low fall coverage with a more matte finish, but it's not matte where it's like dry, and wears incredibly well. For me, this is just like my perfect foundation. This is the one for me, and this has just reaffirmed its place as one of my favorite foundations, definitely. It's not the cheapest foundation, and I do think the Wet n Wild is like a pretty decent dupe for this. Again, I do think this one performs ever so slightly better, but I do really like the Wet n Wild one as well. Obviously I've already reviewed that in this series, so that is like a dupe if you want to buy this foundation but cheaper. But in my opinion, I would definitely recommend getting this. I think it's about £22, so obviously it's not cheap, but it's definitely like it's more affordable than most like high-end foundations, like a Too Faced foundation or a Decay or a Giorgio Armani. What did I just say? Giorgio Armani, you know, any like bougie foundation. Like it's not quite in that price range, but then it's definitely not super affordable either. So for coverage, I think I'd probably just give it a 7 out of 10. High, medium, low, full, so either a 7 or a 7.5. For finish, I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for finish, because I do really like it. I'm just going to knock the 2 points off because it's not a super lightweight looking foundation. That is literally my one criticism. I love the matte finish, I love the smoothness, I think it looks really nice, the finish. And then as I said, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for wear. So I've got a feeling that this is probably going to be the one that tops it. I don't know, it's either this or the L'Oreal. So I am still trying to find the location of the Chanel foundation that I have left, because it's my last one. I thought my sister had it, and I've messaged her and she says she doesn't know and she's gonna look tomorrow. So, and but if my sister hasn't got it and it's not behind the back of my dress, then that foundation has disappeared forever, and then that's probably going to be the end of this part. But either way, I'll let you know. I'm not going to end it here. So I am going to end it here because I couldn't find the Chanel foundation. My sister swears she doesn't have it. I don't believe her. But that is the end of this video. I will do one final part, just reviewing and recapping everything and doing a final declutter. So yeah, that will be coming soon. But that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Bye!